I would love it if you can share more about your journaling process, if you're able to do that. And then maybe we can start there and then see where we go from there.
Okay, cool. Actually, the journal process came about as a result of after I wrote Shapeshifting, people would send me emails saying, "Fun book, but what did you do specifically?" Because I guess during the process I sort of assumed that it was coming through in the book what exactly I did. So I came up with this journaling format, and I published the Shapeshifter's Daily Diary. But let me go ahead and share my screen here so you can see. And we start out with, you don't have to do every single one of these, but I find that if you do follow this format, it's very, very helpful. Every day I log, even if it's just a couple sentences. When you acknowledge the good things, you expand them, then you make them grow. So you always start out with your triumphs. What are some good things? Even sometimes my triumph is just, I remembered to log today. Because for me, remembering to do this is the hardest part. Staying focused and not getting distracted by the crap that made me, get off balance to begin with. So sometimes the triumph really is just, I sat down and I typed out my notes today. Other times it's, hey, I lost a pound overnight, or I found some yummy new foods that I really like and are healthy for me. And makeovers, they can be similar, but every day you should do something that makes you look or feel better about yourself, even if it's just taking a full-blown shower and doing the pedicure and all these kinds of things, little things like that, saging your house, anything that you can do to show that you're doing something for yourself. You've made yourself feel a little better. Whatever it is, something that makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself. And then the challenges, these are things that are in the way. Just like the word says, challenges are things that are currently vexing you. But then what you do with the challenges is you flip it into an intention. If you say something like, I can't make myself even care that I haven't lost a pound or two. And then the intention is, I intend that I not only move downwards on the scale, but that I am gentle with myself. It could even be, I intend that I do more makeovers for myself. Whatever your challenges are, you find a way to make them into a positive action. Your current conditions are, sometimes you need to sort of explain to yourself, you know what, I need to cut myself a break. These challenges are here because something's happening in my life that I don't have any control over. So at least you're acknowledging, I'm not to blame for all of this. Or you might be feeling great, and it's good to log that too. And dreams, as I mentioned, just these little things that you might not realize are little clues. They can come up in dreams. And I know a lot of people don't remember their dreams. I even have that problem a lot. But what I did was I bought a little dream journal. I keep it on my nightstand. But I also bought a little pen with a light on it. So when you click the pen, there's a light that it's blue light, so it won't wake up my husband. It doesn't light up the whole room. And I can just wake up enough, scribble some notes, and then go back to sleep. And it's been an amazing tool. Daily Thanksgiving, we all know the power of gratitude, just showering gratitude. And sometimes it really is a struggle to come up with something to be thankful for. But if you've got this in your journal, it forces you. I have to come up with something I'm thankful for, damn it. So that to me is one of the most important things. And then epiphanies are just, these are when you get these aha moments of, oh my God, I just realized this whole thing is because of, my mother's words. I'm hearing her in my head because she struggled with her weight and I didn't want to be like my mother, but I see that I am. So the epiphanies are ways that you sort of celebrate that you've discovered something exciting, and that can go into your next day's triumph. And every day, again, if you can remember to do this, it's so powerful. It's amazingly powerful. I rely on this.
I actually, as I'm watching you go through and describe the steps in the process, it makes me think too of that it can be used not just for shape shifting for weight loss, but for
Yes.
other processes. It makes me think of my own journey of weightlifting and
Mhm.
re-establishing my relationship to my body and my connection to my body. Would you say that this is something that would work for everyone the way that it's worked for you?
I would say yes, and you make a really excellent point that this is not just about losing weight. And let me address that for a second. I'm always so I hate talking about this like it's weight loss because in so many ways it's become so shallow and it's become such a hackneyed premise that I'm almost sometimes embarrassed that I wrote a weight loss book because it just sounds so. Anyway, that's my own personal issues. But yes, this process can be used for any life change that you want to do. You don't even have to work on your weight at all. Maybe you just want to accomplish something in your career, or you want to accomplish. You want to move to a new house. This format, it's basic, solid metaphysical principles. So whatever goal you're working toward, this is absolutely powerful. I've used it over the years for a lot of different things.
I'm getting like when I get excited and it feels like, oh, we're going down a path and we're heading someplace, and this is connecting to something inside of me. And the idea that people can reestablish a loving, intuitive connection to their bodies, which are carrying them through their lives, that you manage to heal yourself through this process,
Mhm.
and that in the process as well, you're able to get back into your clothes, which was a desire and a goal that you had. Can you share a little bit more about some of the obstacles that you encountered? I know you've touched on a few of them, but can you speak about them more deeply as you were going through this experience?
Sure, absolutely, because really that's the crux of the issue is discovering the obstacles. Because a lot of times if you're not paying attention, it's just that's just the way it is. That's how my mind works. That's how my family is, blah, blah, blah. You don't really look at, okay, what are the details here? So as I mentioned before, my biggest challenge, honest to goddess, was that I have to keep reminding myself that I have this power within me to do this. It's there. It's always there, whether I pay attention to it or not. And it's creating whether I'm paying attention to it or not. So, whatever it is that I'm thinking about and griping about and worrying about, that's being spun out into my physical world because this is just a generating machine. It churns out what I ask it to. So I have to remember that. Again, the hardest thing for me, the biggest challenge for me, life gets in the way. It beats you down. I need to be constantly reminded. And that's why this journaling format is so important. But another obstacle to the idea, again, I mentioned that the term weight loss, it's generally connected with, bikini body expectations. And I never wanted to deliberately invite the male gaze, as it were. And I know that keeps me from getting down to a much lower weight that I carried, when I was a teenager, a young woman. So that's why I prefer to call this weight balancing, because I want to be healthy and balanced, not get stared at and drooled over. But here's a more recent example. As I mentioned, when I recently decided to lose the excess COVID weight, I I this is hard to talk about, but you'll see why in a second. I was moving along. I was making great progress, and I was making notes about what I wanted to talk about for this session. I knew this was coming up, and I knew that I wanted to talk about, because this is the Intuitive Medicine Summit, and I wanted to talk about intuition and weight balancing. So I was doing very specific logging, and before long, even though I was making some progress, I was losing some weight. I was like, "Yay, this really does work!" Before long, even though I noticed I was doing everything right, my weight stalled and it would not budge for a couple weeks. It was stuck, and I was getting pissed. So I started doing some inner exploration, some intuitive listening, and I finally realized that it was fear of embarrassment or ridicule for what I have to say here today, because I've faced it so often in the past. And this is a pretty public forum. I'm taking a risk talking about something so very personal to a lot of strangers. And as I mentioned, I've always been sort of embarrassed to have written a weight loss book. And even after it was published, again, at the turn of the century, this was a long time ago, I had lost 50 pounds while writing this, was just, that's a huge accomplishment. And some people actually said this to me. They said, well, if you're going to promote a weight loss book, you better lose some weight. Because I wasn't pencil thin. They said I lost 50 pounds. I was at a healthy weight. It was in the proper BMI range, but it still wasn't thin enough for them and their expectations of what the term weight loss means. Plus, when I look back at the book, as I mentioned, I wrote it the turn of the century. It was so long ago. And now I see, it was pretty basic. It was my very first book. And, some of the humor is sort of sophomoric. And so I'm kind of embarrassed by, it was my first writer's effort. And I was dreading people hearing me today and reading the book and thinking less of me because it's my writer's first attempt. So because of that fear, I literally stopped losing weight. And as soon as I realized this, I decided to just cancel this interview. You know what? I don't have to do this. I'm not going to torture myself. I let it go. And then as soon as I decided to do that, the weight loss started back up immediately. The next day I was down a pound. So, obviously I've chosen to go ahead with this. So you stage fright. Thanks for listening. Check out Castle Gate, a novel based on my own ancestral healing journey at lisabonnice.com. In 1921, 4 men set off from Scotland to the United States. Will Garrock, his brother Pete, his son Willie, and his nephew Thomas, all coal miners. They left behind the miners' rows and the nationwide mining strike with its soup kitchens. Their destination was Castlegate, Utah, where they had kin to welcome them before sending for their wives and children. They prospered in America, working in one of the finest mines in Utah. Until that tragic day, March 8th, 1924. Disaster struck. 3 explosions trapping 171 men inside. Rescue crews worked tirelessly for days, but sadly, they could not save a soul. Women were widowed and children were orphaned, and some never recovered from their broken hearts. Castlegate is the true and tragic saga of a Scottish family whose dreams of finding their fortunes in the bountiful coal mines of Castlegate, Utah during the Prohibition era explode in one of the most devastating mine disasters in American history. Learn more at lisabonnice.com.